Bienvenidos y fuerte abrazos. This is ALPFA Live. This is our weekly virtual hug, a chance for us to get together in a moment in history where we need each other to motivate one another, inspire each other so we can continue to rise up together. Rising up together requires empathy, humility, and a willingness to give and receive help. And I want us to focus on that help piece for a minute before we go into the good news. You see, right now, it's often a hard thing to ask the question, just how are people doing? And oftentimes what you are going to hear back is one of two things. Either they're doing fine, or they'll say, I'm doing fine given what's going on. And what I encourage everybody to do is ask that follow-up question. No, how are you really doing? You see, when you ask, how are you really doing? What you do is you give space to that person that you are talking to. You give space for them to be able to communicate with you and let you know how you might be able to help. You see, because right now is a time where we need to make sure we are providing that opportunity to help one another more so than ever before. And so I ask the freshmen and sophomores that are out there, find ways to be able to connect in with those seniors in high school that won't have their graduation this year, that are going to be going to your school, and see if you can communicate with them. Let them know that you're going to be there next year when they arrive, and you're going to be there to help. For those juniors and seniors, reaching out to those freshmen and sophomores, letting them know. For those professionals that are out there, making sure you reach out to those students, let them know how you can help them. Also, make sure that you are reaching out to your mentors and your sponsors and having a conversation about helping each other. You see, because it is through that help, the way that we engage with each other, that we are able to have what I like to call mic drop journeys, those journeys throughout life that enable us to be able to make an impact in a significant way. And speaking of journeys and impact, we're going to share a little good news tonight, as we always do. And let us first talk about Angelica Mejia from Rutgers, Newark, EY summer intern. Congratulations, Angelica, on that summer internship. A little bit more good news from Alpha Baltimore, who teamed up with Junior Achievement to make an impact. Junior Achievement said, Alpha redefined volunteerism this year with their dedicated members rising to the top when needed. Talk about helping each other. And now what we are seeing a lot out there is chapters changing leadership as new leaders come into e-boards. And tonight we want to send a big shout out to the Bryant University new e-board that's out there. Congratulations, ladies, on being the leaders at Alpha Bryant. And speaking of phenomenal leaders, tonight we have the creator that enabled this event with us, with RSM, and with the IRS, Catherine Manyoma, who is a PwC worker, but she also is our chapter president in Houston. Catherine, thank you so much for enabling this with us tonight and making this event happen. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey, your Alpha story?
Good evening, everyone. And Damien, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here, and the Alpha Houston board is really excited to be able to participate in the Alpha live TV show. So like Damien mentioned, my name is Catherine Manjoma, and I am the president of the Alpha Houston chapter. This is my first year as president. The previous 2 years, I was the director of events, and I was also the director of events of the Puerto Rico chapter. And this all started because I was legally emancipated at the age of 15. I am a first generation American, first to go to college. And when I got enrolled in the university, I wanted to continue giving back, and I wanted to give the students there the opportunities that I was having, like doing internships, going to exchange programs, because they weren't as involved. And because of that, I was the co-founder of the Puerto Rico chapter in the university, in the Inter-American University. I also continued as president of the student council there, and like giving back and helping others just became part of who I am, right? And when I graduated, I wanted to stay involved. I wanted to continue giving back. And the Alpha Melia took me in, motivated me, mentored me, and allowed me to have the platform to continue doing just that. And to give you a little bit of how this event came together, it was teamwork. I have an amazing Alpha Houston board who works extremely hard in making sure that we add value to our members, help our sponsors as well, and have an impact in our community, and always staying true to our strategy and our mission and vision, making sure that it's all aligned and that our events have purpose. With that, I would like to give a special thank you, to our RSM for their continued support for all these years, and to our new strategic partner, the IRS Hire Program.
Fantastic. Let's take a look at our guest tonight.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. With that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Paula Victoria. She's a senior revenue agent at the Internal Revenue Services and past president of the Hire Houston Organization program, and who is going to continue with the good news. Paula, are you there?
Hi. Yes, Catherine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. So as she said, my name is Paula Victoria. I am a member of Alpha, and I am also a member of Hire, which is an employee organization at the IRS, the Hispanic Internal Revenue employees. Our mission is to help recruit and promote and professionally develop Hispanic employees at the IRS. And we also do a lot of community service for the Hispanic community at large. So if I have anyone in the audience from my Hire folks, hi, welcome, and so happy to have you here. I want to tell you all a little bit about myself so that you know who's talking to you. I am Colombian American, born and raised here in Houston, Texas. I graduated from the University of St. Thomas, and I helped found their Hispanic business student group, and it later became an Alpha chapter, a student Alpha chapter. And through that, I gained an internship with HACU, the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, and that was my step into the IRS. So I became an employee of the IRS before graduating college, and I stuck with it, and I've been at the IRS ever since. So I am pretty much 12 years into the IRS. As Catherine said, My current position is a senior revenue agent. I audit large tax returns. And outside of the IRS, I work as a professor for Lone Star College, teaching accounting and various tax courses. So just like a lot of you here, I was a part of student organizations and groups like ALPFA and now like Hire to help me get prepared for my next career move. And I'm so grateful for these organizations, and I'm really happy that they helped me get to where I'm at. And with that, I'm excited to announce that first time in a long time, as a matter of fact, the IRS has been hiring this year. So we are doing a lot of hiring. There's student opportunities. There are also opportunities for recent graduates. And I want to share some of that information with all of you here. We have this great organization or opportunity that's available throughout all the federal agencies. And in 2020, it's the first time that the IRS participated in this. And it's called the Civic Digital Fellowship. It's targeted for the top talent in the tech world. And so if you're a student who's seeking a degree in this field, then this may be something that you'd be interested in doing. It's a 10-week program where you intern for the summer at a federal agency. And like I said, it's the first time that the IRS is participating. The 2020 fellows have already been selected. And because of the current environment, they're all going to be doing their work from home somehow in this new year. But please keep an eye out. And if that's something that you're interested in, then the opportunity will be there for next year. Another program that I want everybody to know about is the Pathways program. It's also a federal program. I came in through something very similar to Pathways. It was called something else before, but now it's sort of converted into the Pathways. And I also heard about the USDA hiring proofreaders, Spanish proofreaders and translators. So that's a job opportunity that's out there right now. And for all of these opportunities, what we ask you to do is you just go to usajobs.gov. So that's usajobs.gov. Create a profile on there, make a search. You'll find if you're qualified, and you'll find all of these various job opportunities. So that's the first thing I really wanted to make sure I got out there and shared with everybody. With that, we can go ahead and get started on today's main topic, which is a lot of the tax relief that has been released because of the COVID crisis. So my colleague and I are here today with you to discuss some of these tax relief provisions that have been announced in response to COVID. The information that we're going to be sharing with you, it's all public. It can be found on the IRS website, specifically www.irs.gov/COVID. And if you can't remember that, don't worry about it. I mean, you just go to irs.gov, and right on the homepage, you'll see 3 different buttons that talk about COVID relief or coronavirus help. So you can just visit the site often because it is constantly being updated. There are a lot of changes. There are a lot of updates happening, and the website is keeping up to date with all of that. Our discussion is going to be divided into 2 parts, just so that all of you guys know and you can kind of get an understanding of what we're doing here today. First, I'm going to cover the extensions that have been allowed to pay, as well as the extensions to file your taxes. I'm also going to discuss of tax relief measures very specific to individuals. So with that, let's go ahead and begin with the first of my 3 topics. All right, so first, with respect to filing and paying your taxes. Okay, there are 3 notices that the IRS has issued on this subject. Notice 2020-18, 2020-20, and also Notice 2020-23. If you go to our iOS website, you can find them. They're not that lengthy. Each one of them is maybe 2 or 3 pages. So you could read them if you want. But the great thing is that the IRS has created frequently asked questions. And that's the easiest part to read. You know, a lot of our scenarios or a lot of the situations that we may be in are answered in the frequently asked questions. I'm going to address some of those here tonight, and I hope it's going to clarify some things that you may have. I do want to make sure everyone keeps in mind that my discussion pertains only to federal income taxes. So for example, I live in Texas and we don't have state income tax, but many of you watching may be somewhere where you have a state obligation. So just be aware that I'm talking about your federal income tax obligations, and I'm not talking about maybe some of your state requirements. You have to go through your state to figure out if there's any relief over there. All right, so as all of this is happening, right, it's April 23rd, and the normal and the usual tax day that we all know has passed. And I'm sure many of you have seen on the news and are aware that that we have been granted an extension to file our taxes this year. So normally it's always on April 15th, but the IRS has extended both the tax payment as well as the tax filing to July 15th. So that's the first big thing. So any person with a federal income tax return or a payment that was due on April 15th, you're eligible for this relief. And this includes the payments for you to pay towards your 2019 federal income tax, or also if you had a due date to pay 2020 estimated tax payments. Some people pay quarterly. They make estimated tax payments. Those have also been postponed until July 15th. Just so that you know, you don't have to be sick. You don't have to be quarantined. You don't have to be directly impacted from COVID in order to get this relief. Everybody is allowed the relief. You don't have to file any special paperwork. You don't have to call the IRS or anything like that. And you don't have to file any additional forms. Some people have asked, so what about the contributions to your individual retirement account or your HSA or your MSA? So your IRA, your health savings account, your medical savings account, just so that you know, those have also been extended. Some of you may be aware that you get a tax benefit if you make contributions to those accounts. You could count them as deductions on your tax return. And usually you have a maximum deadline until April 15th to contribute to the accounts. But that is now being extended, and you can contribute to them all the way up until July 15th.
Thank you, Paula. So I think we understand about filing. What about payments?
Perfect.
What if I owe the IRS?
Perfect. Okay. So now that we understand all of that about payments, we've also granted lots of extensions for paying the taxes. So as I stated earlier, you can file by July 15th, but that is the due date to pay. You cannot pay later, because after July 15th, the usual interest and penalties will start to accumulate. So if for whatever reason you need more time to file, not to pay, but to file, you can ask for an extension, and you have to file the form as usual, and you would be granted an extension to October 15th. But that does not extend your obligation to pay. So we do want to remind everybody that if you want to avoid interest and penalties, you pay the taxes that you owe or that you estimate to owe by July 15th. And if you expect a refund, honestly, we encourage you to file as soon as possible. Put in your banking information to get direct deposit, because that's the fastest way to get your money if you're expecting a refund.
Thank you, Paula. What about collection efforts? Is there any relief or enforcement relief from the IRS?
Great. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. So on March 25th, in response to the entire COVID crisis, the IRS announced a sweeping series of steps to assist taxpayers by providing relief on a lot of issues, ranging from easing payment guidelines, postponing compliance, and even certain enforcement actions. So our IRS Commissioner, Chuck Redding, he stated in this memo that during this difficult time, we want people working together. We want everybody focused on their well-being, helping each other and others less fortunate. And I think this resonates with Damien's message in the beginning. So this is what the People First Initiative is all about. You can find the entire People First Initiative memo on the IRS website, but I'm going to highlight a few of the important points for you guys. So if there are installment agreements out there, if you have a tax obligation and you're paying in chunks, and you had payments due between April 1st and July 15th, be aware that those are now suspended. If you use direct deposit, where the money is immediately taken out of your bank account on a given date in order to make these installment payments, you can suspend these bank withdrawals. And the IRS is not going to default any installment agreement during this period. And by law, the interest will not accrue on any unpaid balances during this period. In addition, for non-filers, there's some relief. If you have not filed your return for years before 2019, then this is an opportunity for you to file those delinquent returns. And just to give you all some statistics, more than 1 million households that haven't filed tax returns are in fact due a refund. So you still have time to claim those refunds, and you can file before July 15th to get that money. As far as collection efforts, liens and levies under the People First initiative will be suspended, and delinquent accounts will not be forwarded to private collection agencies during this period. So that's a great thing for many people. Now, some of you out there may be practitioners, or you may be taxpayers that are undergoing an IRS audit at this moment. So that you're aware, under this new People First initiative, there will be no new audits during the period, although there are a few exceptions that apply. But if there's an existing audit, we have suspended all in-person meetings because we're abiding by the social distancing measures. And we have expanded our capabilities to communicate digitally and to transmit files electronically with our taxpayers and their representatives. So that's been a big relief in helping us move our current audits along. And then lastly, on this People First initiative, is that if you are a practitioner out there listening, there's a practitioner priority service. And many of you, you may have, we just want to remind you that right now our practitioner priority service is under reduced staffing levels because of the situation. And so there may be significant wait times, but we're doing the best we can. And the IRS continues to review all of this information on the People First initiative. And if it's appropriate, we may modify or they may expand the initiative. So with that, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all, to share this valuable information. And that concludes sort of what I wanted to talk to you all about. And I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Irs Audit.
Thank you, Paula. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all well and staying safe. I am also an IRS hire and a ALPFA member. I have been a revenue agent with the IRS for the past 10 years, and prior to that, I worked with Heinz Interest and with PricewaterhouseCoopers. I'm a graduate of DePaul University in Chicago, so a big shout out to my DePaulians out there. And while at DePaul, I was actually a member of MAHA, which is the Midwest Association of Hispanic Accountants. And I used to take part in a lot of accounting competitions. And through MAHA, I actually landed my PwC internship and a job over there. And I also met my mentor, Sergio, who worked with the IRS. And going forward, he's the one who guided me to come into this role as a revenue agent at the IRS. Now, today I will be sharing with you some information about the stimulus bill known as the CARES Act, Economic Impact Payment. I'm sure many of you have heard of this on the news. I'm going to tell you who is and who is not eligible for this money. Next, the IRS built a new web tool called Get My Payment, and I want to tell you how to find it and use it. And then lastly, I will briefly touch on the expansion of the unemployment benefit.
Thank you, Hader. That's great. So why don't we start with who is eligible to receive this payment?
Of course. So the CARES Act was signed into law on March 27th. And as many of you probably heard in the news, that the government is giving out money to help mitigate the COVID situation. The CARES Act created a 2020 tax credit, which will be prepaid in the form of the economic impact payment. This payment will be distributed automatically, and no action is required for most people. In fact, many folks have already received their payments. In fact, out there, whoever is listening, if you or anyone you know has received this payment, why don't you just put that in the text chat on Facebook or YouTube to let us know. Now, if you got your payment, it's because the IRS system determined you were eligible. For individual filers, you're eligible if your adjusted gross income is $75,000 or less. And for couples, who file a joint return, you're eligible if your household adjusted gross income is $150,000 or less. If this is the case, then you will receive $1,200 each and $500 for each qualifying child under the age of 17 years. In cases where your income may exceed the levels I mentioned, the payment will be decreased, and then no payment will be received by individuals making more than $99,000 or joint filers making more than $198,000. So I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone of Paula's comments earlier. If you visit irs.gov, you will find everything we're discussing here today and more. This is an excellent collection. There's an excellent collection of frequently asked questions which may address some specific situations or concerns. Let me take a moment to walk you through just some of them. So, how will you receive the money? Okay. Now, I know many have already received it, but those out there who have yet to receive their money and are eligible, the IRS will calculate and automatically send the payment to you. The IRS will determine this by using information from your 2019 tax return. If you have not filed for 2019, the IRS will be using your 2018 tax return. Now, this raises the question of people who do not normally file a tax return or are not needed to file a return. If you or maybe an elderly family member fall into one of these categories, please listen up and please spread the word. If you haven't filed a return for 2018 or 2019 and receive Social Security or Railroad Retirees benefits, then the government already has your information and you will receive your payment as a direct deposit or by mail, just as you would normally receive your other federal benefits. Now, if you haven't filed a return for 2018 and 2019 and you don't receive Social Security income or any other federal benefit, then you must provide the IRS with some basic information to receive your payment. We urge you take one of the following actions as soon as possible. Go to the irs.gov website. You can use the non-filers enter payment info here tool. There's a button over there. You can click on there, provide some simple information to the IRS so you can get your payment the quickest way, which is the direct deposit. If for whatever reason you cannot use the tool, then you can file a federal income tax return for 2019 with the IRS, even if you receive non-taxable income or do not make enough money to normally file. Now, for either of these two steps, please make sure that you have your current bank account information available and that you enter that in the system. Now, lastly, before I move on, I know there are veterans out there who receive veterans benefits and they are wondering whether they need to provide information to the IRS or not. Um, at this time, the IRS is still exploring ways to see if payments can be made automatically to those who receive veterans disability compensation or pension or survivors benefits from the VA. The best suggestion I can provide is that you use the non-filers enter payment info here tool to quickly receive your payment or wait as the IRS continues to review automatic payment options. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but this is important. And if at any time I've gone too fast, or if you need further clarifications, remember to visit the irs.gov website. It has a ton of information over there. Now, quickly, I'd like to point out that some people are not eligible for the economic impact payment, and this may affect you or a family member. So, you're not eligible if your income is above the thresholds that I mentioned at the beginning, or if you are claimed as a dependent on someone else's return and then you're not eligible. Think of this as a child or student or an older person who can be claimed as a dependent. Now, or if you do not have a valid social security number, you will not receive the EIP. Let me briefly discuss the issue of the $500 qualifying child. Now, the child who will qualify for this must be claimed as a dependent on your tax return, should be under the age of 17, should be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or a U.S. resident alien, and have a valid social security number or an adoption tax identification number. Now, recent college students ages 17 and above will not qualify as a child for the purpose of this $500 payment.